Greetings fellow Gravewalkers, and welcome back to another video! Mordor is filled with beasts of all sizes, from the smallest flies to the largest of fell beasts and graugs. Today we're going to be looking at all of Mordor's beasts mentioned in Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War. We're going to go in somewhat of an order and tackle Shadow of Mordor first, along with any creatures that also appear in Shadow of War, ending with creatures that only appear in Shadow of War and extended stuff. We're going to start with the creeping and crawling spiders of Mordor, known as the Ungol, or just spiders by the orcs. The Ungol are the children of Shelob and are rightfully named after their grandmother, Ungoliant, the great spider that Morgoth sent to drain power from the two trees in Valinor, and then promptly betrayed the Dark Lord and tried to eat him, only for his yells of rage to reach far enough to alert the Balrogs to the nest where they fought off the greatest spider. Unlike that glamorous story, the Ungol don't get anywhere near to the size and power of Ungoliant. Rather, they would reach a still horrifying size as we see in Mirkwood. I do have to point out as well that each interpretation of Shelob and the Ungol are slightly different. Funnily enough, Shadow of War's depiction of Spider Shelob is far more book accurate, being hairless and covered in a thick exoskeleton. Same with the small Ungol you'll see around the map. The Peter Jackson films opted for a more realistic approach to Shelob and the Ungol, making them look more like tarantulas, which I think personally is far scarier. Back on topic, while they have a main home at Non-Ungol, a small valley in the southwest of Mordor, they do spread out and live just about anywhere with abundant prey. The orcs hate the spiders less than rats, but still find them to be annoying pests who can cause annoying itchy bites, or at worst, possibly remove a single orc from an army. But with how fast and agile they are, to eliminate them would prove entirely foolish. So long as the Ungol in an area remain small, the orcs have little reason to call an exterminator. But woe to the orcs who mine the caves for material, because now they're on the spiders' territory. Orcs that keep watch overnight have an important job, watching for rival war bands and ambushes by men, but there's beasts that lurk in the dark that make this job far more dangerous and absolutely required. If the fires go out, there's a non-zero chance a group of ghouls make their appearance and savagely attack the orcs, dragging away the dead to feed the colony. These buggers are weak alone, with groups of 2 to 5 still being light work for the average Uruk. But in higher numbers, like they usually hunt, they are far more dangerous. Ghouls are pack hunters who use numbers to their advantage, throwing themselves at orcs, humans, and even beasts like caragors. They are equipped with sharp claws and teeth, and some are even able to spit acidic bile from their stomachs. Physically, they're short and decently muscular, but have an obvious hunch that allows them to comfortably run on all fours. Their eyes also glow very brightly. Ghouls are often hunted for cheap, simple pelts, and some orcs make it their mission to eradicate as many as possible. They also prove a challenge for orcs delving into caves to hunt for forging materials or construction. Although humanoid, the ghouls seem to lack real intelligence, mostly just mobbing targets, especially those that the ghoul matron has hit with her bile. As an extra, ghouls kind of remind me of the Rake, if any of you know about that creepypasta. Just thought I'd throw that in there, that I thought was really cool. Ghouls function like most colony animals and are led by a matron, just like bees have a queen. The ghoul matron is a normal ghoul that grows in size to lead the colony and take over should the former matron be, well, offed. They are larger, around 2 times the size of a normal ghoul, and are more armored. Large spikes, likely made of keratin, grow off their bodies, giving them a spiky appearance. They're also much stronger and can prove a challenge for even experienced Uruks. Ghoul matrons, much like bees, lead the colony and provide an endless source of young, but unlike bees, where the queen rarely if ever leaves, the ghoul matron is willing to assist its workers in taking down stronger prey that is likely more valuable. It would seem ghouls usually live underground in large nests, while hunting parties go out to look for food. Rats are a common pest everywhere, even in the real world, but Mordor's rats are on another level of troublesome. The rats from Mordor are ravenous and care little about what they eat so long as they do, whether it's a camp of Uruk's rations or the cloth and pelts of their tents and gear. They can also deliver a painful bite that most Uruks would prefer to avoid when possible. Tales are spread by Uruks far and wide about the rats, including myths that they sometimes gather in swarms large enough to jump an orc and consume all but the bones and gear before anyone notices. While these are likely just stories from battle-weary and hungry orcs, should the rats be capable, there's little doubt that they would. The smallest creature in this video is still capable of dealing damage to even the most hardened of Urukai, the Morgai fly. While they're called flies, they're more like bees. The flying pests live in colony hives that buzz and hum with activity, likely that of workers coming and going to feed their queen. Morgai flies are small with massive red compound eyes. The rest of their body is a simple black except for their bright red backs that remind the orcs of the Eye of Sauron. The main reason I liken them to bees rather than the flies is their potent stinger, of which no real fly actually has. While not usually lethal, the sting delivered by these buzzers can be wildly painful, even to the Urukai who have a widely known high pain tolerance. Uruks would rather avoid their nests entirely and leave them hanging than risk the hundreds of painful stings that can follow tampering. The Morgai flies can live anywhere that the dead are prevalent, and Mordor is no stranger to leaving corpses without a grave. Due to their bee-like nature and the fact that they feed on rotting corpses, I think it's pretty safe to assume they are a species of carnivorous bees that make honey from meat like vulture bees. Continuing with flying creatures, we have the Hellhawks. Although the word hawk is in their names, these flying reptilians are not birds, rather being distantly related to the fell beasts ridden by the Nazgul, and the resemblance is certainly there. The Hellhawk's long neck is great for snatching rats and other pests from the ground, the same way it's great for taking out other flying creatures, which the Hellhawks are greatly known for. It's basically confirmed that the Hellhawks are a creation of Sauron, and then he exerts his will over them, commanding them to kill the smaller birds that wander into Mordor, and also for watching the orcs. The Uruks are weary when Hellhawks watch them, but generally don't mind so long as they don't linger. Men are even less superstitious, but are very willing to shoot arrows at them if it makes them leave. Another flying critter has flown in, but this one is more dangerous than the Hellhawk. The Morgul bat is a bat like any other, flying around in search of prey, but what they lack in biological intrigue, they make up for in their symbiotic relationship with their food. The Morgul bats eat the fluids and meat of the corpses that scatter Mordor, and what flesh sticks to their teeth slowly begins to decay, giving them a lethal, toxic bite. This toxin is highly praised by Uruks, who use it to coat their weapons, but sometimes the hunt for one of these bats' super poison is cut short by a painful and wretched bite. Uruks that survive being bit by a Morgul bat twist and contort, ending up like the Blight and Plaguebringer titles. But that's a small price to pay for a toxin that can drain the life from something so quickly. Ghouls that live in Morgul bat caves also sometimes eat the critters, which boosts their acidic bile and potency even more. I've talked about the creature known as the Great Beast in Shadow of Mordor's Appendices at length before in my 10 Tiny Details video. I speculated there that Great Beast is an umbrella term that encompasses the Mumakil or Oliphants, the beasts pulling Grond in the movies, and the beast seen in the very image. Great beasts are varied and we likely haven't seen all of them, but what is known is that Graugs are one of their main predators. While ghouls are pack hunters, they aren't Mordor's most lethal. That honor goes to the Caragor. Caragors are large feline predators that range from bald to fluffy. The massive teeth that hang out of their mouths are capable of piercing the heaviest Urukai armor and slicing flesh like a hot knife through butter. It's noted they are direct rivals of wargs, and will fight with them on sight. It's also mentioned that Caragors are more effective hunters than wargs, but they are fewer in numbers. Caragors have incredibly strong legs that make them as proficient at climbing as it does running. It's also noted that Caragors are brave to a fault, preferring to die fighting than ever retreat, and this seems especially foolish when you learn that they often will ambush Graugs. Their success rate at hunting Graugs does certainly seem shaky, and it would be very hard to imagine their small packs taking down the largest Graugs. But this isn't where Caragors end. It's just where they get bigger and meaner. Caragor packs are often led by a dire Caragor, even larger beasts with thicker, pale white hides and more powerful jaws and limbs. dire Caragors usually travel alone until they find a pack of normal Caragors to lead. Once they are cemented as a leader, they'll usually stay there. Normal Caragors are already incredibly smart compared to Mordor's other beasts, but dire Caragors take this to another level, being among the smartest creatures in all of the Land of Shadow. They are elusive until the end, and most Uruks will go their whole lives without seeing one. But those that do either end up their next meal, or have one crazy story to tell around the campfire with a good old glass of grog. The most talented hunters and trackers consider their pelts to be the most valuable, even more so than Graug hide. But only the crazy would attempt to make a dire Caragor a mount. Caragors are already stubborn to a fault and difficult to tame, but those who break a dire Caragor have little to worry about on the battlefield. So I realized while editing that I actually missed a Caragor subspecies, and that's the Caragath from the Lord of the Hunt DLC for Shadow of Mordor. I'm not quite sure how I missed that, probably because I've not played Lord of the Hunt, even now, all this time after, but I didn't miss a future entry from Lord of the Hunt, so still not sure how that didn't crop up while I was looking for Caragor stuff before. Either way, the Caragath. It is a subspecies of the Caragor that is a more ambush-oriented hunter. While Caragors will jump and ambush stuff, the Caragath does it with a higher level of success. Caragors are willing to square up and fight in open combat, while the Caragath isn't super interested in that. If it fails to jump its prey, it will simply meander off and come again another day when it has the jump. Caragaths are also fluffy, unlike the other Caragors seen in Udun and Nurnen in Shadow of Mordor, which I think does also beg an interesting question. Said interesting question being whether or not the Caragors in Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War are two different species of Caragor, because of course they are fluffy in Shadow of War, but they are scaly in Shadow of Mordor, or if that is just an external art decision that Monolith made, and they just changed them to line up more with the Caragath. I'm kind of curious about that. In my mind, it would be cool if they are a slightly different species of Caragor. Maybe the ones in Shadow of War are some hybrid between the Caragath and the normal Caragor. Maybe they are just some other fluffy Caragor. I don't know, but I thought I'd bring that up as well while I was editing, because I found it kind of interesting thinking about it. The largest land-bound creatures in Mordor are the Graugs. Being related to trolls shouldn't come as a surprise, given their posture and massive fingered fists. Graugs are among the oldest species in Mordor and even beyond, but their main home is around Nurn. Some wander further, however, reaching Udun, Saragost, and even Lithlath. Unlike their distant troll relatives, Graugs possess large, sharp claws and teeth and a much larger frame, and stand around 2 to 3 times the size of Olog high, which are already bigger than natural trolls. Graugs are known to eat anything as long as they can swallow it, but their favorite and size-appropriate prey are the great beasts and wereworms. But should a fell beast or drake fly too low, they may also become a Graug's next meal. There are many different subspecies of Graug, and the first one is the Olog Graug. The Olog Graugs are larger than the base species and have thicker armored hides. These beasts are even more ill-tempered than others and appear to be slightly less intelligent, though being the juggernauts they are means they don't really have to worry about it. The Horned Graug is a far rarer subspecies that appears to be slowly going extinct. They are a slight bigger than the Olog Graug and grow many more large spikes. To kill one is an undertaking of high regard, but the hunters who manage it will have their names forever echoed by the feral tribe. The Wretched Graug is a subspecies of particular interest. These Graugs have undergone significant biological changes from the consumption of ghouls. The ghoul bile has affected them greatly, and they now grow large tumors, have large unnatural horns, grow fur in disgusting green patches, and lastly, have grown a massive fleshy throat sac that allows them to spit their own acidic, toxic bile. The last subspecies of Graug in Shadow of Mordor is the Legendary Graug. Only one of these beasts is seen and heard of in the entire game, and that's the Great White Beast that Torvin is hunting in Nurn. This creature is much larger and ferocious than the average Graug, and it seems to be very territorial. that grows more spikes, tusks, and horns than even the horned Graug, and it appears that the Dark Lord was also searching for it to use as a warhorse. But Talion and Torvin cut that plan short by killing the only known Graug of this entire subspecies. Our last Graug subspecies are found in Shadow of War, and they are the Elemental Graugs. These Graugs have adapted to their environment from either magic or just adaptation. Fire Graugs reside around the volcanic plains of Gorgoroth and the scorching heat of Lithlad. Ice Graugs are the rarest and have only been seen in the hostile mountains of Saragost. And Poison Graugs are the most plentiful, being found around Nurnen, Cirith Ungol, and around Minas Morgul. The final creatures we've seen in-game are the Drakes. These beasts are created from breeding a dragon and a fell beast. They inherit the bodies of their fell beast parents with the colors and abilities of their dragon ones. Drakes are a bit smaller than fell beasts and are unable to breed, making them wholly artificial. And many Uruks wish to tame Drakes, but very few have been as successful, though it appears at least one Olog has managed it, as mentioned by Akoth and Blade of Galadriel.
What has happened?
Osran's departed a week ago to avenge his blood brother. Took his drakes with him. We have not heard from him since.
Drakes are simple creatures that enforce Sauron's will over Mordor from the skies, and frankly seem rather dumb, but they make up for that by being fully under Sauron's control and possessing the fire-breathing abilities of real dragons that the fell beasts lack. Our last creature overall is the widely feared mounts of the Nazgul, the Fell Beasts. I've mentioned that the Hellhawks are distantly related to them and that the Drakes are their offspring. So where did these smooth-skinned reptilians come from? Tolkien never confirmed how Fell Beasts were created, but the most plausible theories are that they are the remains of an ancient species that was once plentiful and now are corrupted by Sauron's evil, or that they are artificial and of themselves and were created through magic. Also, you have to give credit to Peter Jackson for making the Fell Beasts so accurate to their book description. It really impresses me just how well done that model is. And that was the lore and biology of all of Mordor's beasts. And to be honest, I had a lot more fun with this one than I have a couple of my previous lore-focused videos. I'm not particularly happy with how the plot holes one came out, because I was expecting to have more to work with, and by the end, I kind of think it wasn't up to par. But this one I really had a lot of fun with. It's fun to look at a fictional creature and apply some real-world biology and sense to them, and I generally just find doing that stuff very fun. But that does bring us to the end of this video. So, if you are playing Fortnite, and there is a new season starting very soon, by the way, you can use code WreckingBallBlue to get your new Battle Pass or any of the stuff before it leaves the shop, like Mask Maker Daigo, or I know they have some summer stuff in. That is pretty cool. So, you can use code WreckingBallBlue in the Fortnite item shop to help support me. With that, we've come to the end of this video, so if you have enjoyed, consider hitting the like button down below because it tells me that you like the video, and if you like what I do, consider subscribing for more. With that, I will see you all next time!